No name, no explanation, just that. Inside, the space smelled faintly of cardboard and old fabric. Tables lined the walls, stacked with boxes in various states of collapse. Volunteers worked quietly, sorting through what people no longer wanted or could no longer keep. Some items were practical, others were deeply personal. The rule was simple: nothing was questioned, everything was sorted. One afternoon, a woman named Claire walked in carrying a small cardboard box. It was the kind of box you'd use when you move or clean out a closet, light, fragile. She held it carefully, as if the bottom might give way. She didn't look around much or linger. She walked straight to the counter and set the box down. The volunteer on duty was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and tired hands. He opened the box expecting clothes or kitchenware. Instead, he found photographs, dozens of them, black and white snapshots, faded color prints, a wedding photo with stiff smiles, a baby wrapped in a blanket, a family gathered around a table, hands mid-motion, caught in laughter that no longer echoed anywhere. He paused. "These are personal," he said gently. "Are you sure you want to leave them?" Claire nodded without hesitation. "They just don't belong to anyone anymore," she said. The volunteer hesitated again and said, "Someone once cared about them." Claire let out a small, tired breath. "That someone is gone," she said. "Everyone is gone. The house is empty. The names don't mean anything anymore." She didn't sound angry. She just sounded finished. The volunteer looked at the photos again, then back at Claire. "They mattered once," he said quietly. "That doesn't disappear just because time passes." Claire didn't argue. She closed the box, pushed it across the counter, and said, "They're just taking up space." Then she turned and walked out. The bell above the door rang softly as it closed behind her. The volunteer stood there for a long moment, staring at the box. Around him, the work continued. Items were stacked, labels were written, decisions were made: repair, recycle, discard. He picked up the box and carried it to the sorting table. He opened it again. He tried to place it with the paper recycling, then stopped. He tried the donation pile, then stopped again. Finally, he slid the box under the table, not because he knew what to do with it, but because he couldn't bring himself to throw it away. The box stayed there, not because it was worthless, but because someone could not bring himself to call it disposable. Weeks passed. The box remained. Every now and then, the volunteer would catch sight of it and feel a small tightening in his chest. He didn't know Claire's story. He didn't know the names in the photos. He only knew that someone had decided they no longer mattered. One evening, as he locked up for the night, he carried the box to his car. Not because he had a plan, but because it felt wrong to leave it behind. Claire never came back. She never asked about the photos. She never reclaimed the box. The story was not fixed, not restored, nor explained. It was simply held. We live in a world that is very good at deciding what matters and what doesn't. Every day, often without realizing it, value is assigned and reassigned. We measure worth by usefulness and productivity, by strength and independence, by age and visibility. We celebrate what is efficient, impressive, and profitable, and we quietly set aside what is slow, fragile, and inconvenient. We decide quickly who belongs and who doesn't, who is worth protecting and who is ignored, who is seen as essential and who is treated as expendable. Those judgments shape entire systems, but they also shape everyday interactions. Who gets listened to? Who gets overlooked? Whose pain is taken seriously? Whose story is dismissed? And if we're honest, we do not only apply that logic to others, we turn it inward as well. We begin to wonder if we still matter when we're tired, aging, struggling, or unseen. We question our worth when our roles change, when our abilities shift, when our health falters, or when our lives don't look the way we imagined they would. Into a world shaped by that kind of thinking comes the story of baptism, not as a ritual to observe or a tradition to remember, but as a declaration that interrupts everything we think we know about worth. Baptism speaks into a culture of measurement and says something radically different. It says, you are named, you are claimed, and you are never disposable. When Jesus comes to the Jordan River, he doesn't come because he needs forgiveness or correction. He comes to stand fully with humanity, to step into the same waters as everyone else. He enters the river not above the people, but among them. And before he preaches a sermon, before he heals a single person, before he challenges authority or changes lives, a voice speaks from heaven. This is my Son, my beloved, with whom I am well pleased. That voice doesn't assign a task or issue a command. It doesn't describe what Jesus will do. It names who he is. Jesus is named before he is sent. He is claimed before he is tested. He is loved before he proves anything. To be named is to be known. The prophet Isaiah gives voice to this truth when God says, I have called you by name. You are mine. Not by number, not by category, not by usefulness or productivity. Names say, I see you, I know you, and you matter. In a world that labels people by what they do or what they lack, God insists on calling us beloved. Your name is not burden. Your name is not failure. Your name is not too old, too broken, or too much. Your name, spoken by God, is beloved. To be claimed is to belong. Baptism isn't about achievement or moral perfection. It's about belonging. It's God's way of saying, you are mine, and nothing can take that away. We don't earn that claim. We don't perform for it. We don't age out of it. God's claim is not fragile or conditional. It doesn't depend on our confidence, our consistency, or our success. It holds even when we doubt it ourselves. And in a culture that constantly asks us to prove our worth, baptism stands as a holy refusal. It says we belong because God says so. And then comes the truth that challenges us deeply. If we're named and claimed by God, so then is every other person. That truth doesn't stop with us. It reaches far beyond the sanctuary. It means no one is expendable. No one is disposable. No one is invisible. Not the child, not the elderly, not the poor, not the person struggling with addiction, not the one whose story makes it uncomfortable, not the trafficked, the exploited, or the forgotten. Human trafficking exists because someone somewhere decided another human life was disposable, that a person could be bought, sold, used, and discarded. It thrives in spaces where dignity is denied and worth is reduced to profit or power. The gospel stands in direct opposition to that lie. It declares that every person bears the image of God. Every person carries sacred worth. Every person is claimed by love, whether the world recognizes it or not. Here's the truth that changes everything. If God names us beloved before we do anything, then worth isn't something we assign. It's something we recognize. If God claims us before we prove ourselves, then belonging is not conditional. It's sacred. And if God declares that no one is disposable, then the church has no permission to treat anyone as if they are. The box stayed there, not because it was valuable in the eyes of the world, but because someone could not bring himself to call it disposable. And neither can God. Baptism is not just about water. It's about resistance. Resistance to a world that discards. Resistance to systems that exploit. Resistance to voices that say some lives matter less than others. Every time we remember our baptism, we're reminded of who we are and whose we are. We are named, we are claimed, and we are called to live like no one else is disposable. Before you leave today, remember this. You are not what the world has labeled you. You are not what you fear you have become. You are not forgotten. You are named by God. You are claimed by grace. And in God's kingdom, you are never disposable. Thanks be to God. Amen. Now I just want to sit quietly for a few seconds and just kind of ponder on what we've heard, allowing God to speak to us in the silence. Please stand.